Welcome back. You're watching World Talks, and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. On Sunday, September 21st, Turkey's main opposition party will hold an extraordinary congress after a court ousted its Istanbul leadership on graft allegations. To talk latest developments and what's next for Turkey's opposition, I'm joined by Kıvanç Ulusoy, professor of political science at the Istanbul University. Thank you so much for joining me here on the program. I appreciate it.
Good morning.
So, what is Republican People's Party, which is the largest opposition force in the Turkish parliament, future when it's facing this sort of political uncertainty?
The key for democracy is the elections, of course. But there is another important key, which is the opposition. So we have been governed by almost 22 years by one party. This is the Justice and Development Party, AK Party, I would say. And during these times, the opposition, the main opposition party was the Republican People's Party. However, we see that the party has been losing a lot of municipalities that they gained in the latest local elections because of corruption allegations, because of accusations to political leaders, etc., etc. But the opposition is a key actor in democracy, and we see in many countries the backsliding of the democracy is related with the incorporation of the opposition to the regime. Or the pacification of the opposition. Now we see more or less the same process in Turkey as well for about, let's say, 4 or 5 years. The opposition has been humiliated in various terms and under corruption allegations, under accusations from the government, lots of other means to pacify them. But we see there is still a chance for Republican People's Party to come back and to continue its mission to preserve the democracy in Turkey.
So, as we're looking at this Congress, what do you think are possible scenarios for this Congress, which is set to take place?
This is an extraordinary Congress just to make or to consolidate the power of the current leadership in the party. I think this is a kind of requirement for the party to continue with the current leadership, because the latest Congress was accused of bribery and corruption of the delegates, etc. So that's why they decided to have an extraordinary new Congress.
I would like to take a moment to look at what's happening in Turkey as of now, because the arrest and jailing of Ekrem İmamoğlu, who is actually seen as a key rival to Erdogan, sparked protests that we've been covering here on TVP World. What is the situation like in Turkey now?
The mood in Turkey is really low because of the economic situation, and after the latest local elections that the Republican People's Party gained most of the municipalities in Istanbul. Apart from the grand mayor of the city, Republican People's Party was successful in Anatolia, in many cities where traditionally the conservative right vote was predominant. So there was a kind of light at the end of the tunnel for Turkish democracy after the latest elections. But now we see that the grim economic situation, political pressures from the governing party over the opposition, and the hopeless situation related with how we go out of this political crisis, make the country seriously depressed and unmotivated, I will say.
So the ousting of the leader of the CHP, which is for our viewers, Republican People's Party that we just mentioned at the beginning of our interview, is largely seen as a sort of an opening act to what could possibly come next when it comes to Turkey. We've also heard from a political analyst, Berk Essen, who told AFP the move was a sort of a rehearsal for the bigger case against the party's national leadership seeking to hobble it as an opposition force. What do you think is coming up next? What are the steps that we're going to see following this Congress? And could we possibly expect some escalation?
Look, leaving aside many accusations against İmamoğlu, we could see that people trusted him. People still trust him despite many other newer, I would say, accusations of corruption, of bribery, etc., etc. So İmamoğlu looks still a credible leader of the future Turkey, but he is in prison. He can't, I think, run for any elections in the near future because of this situation and other reasons. So we see that the governing party will try to go to the next presidential elections with the same candidate and with a weak opposition. Let us see what will come out of this. However, I should say that the frustration from the AK party increased tremendously over the past few years.
So it is safe to say that based on what we've seen so far, when it comes to the government's opposition to the CHP, this is a sign of CHP's strong position and that trust that you mentioned before.
Yes, many people in this country accused CHP for a long time because of its policy towards power, and as the CHP leadership acted as if they don't want power, and they are in opposition. They don't take responsibility of the governing of the country, etc., etc. So that's why people did not trust much to CHP as a government. But after the latest local elections, this changed with the new leader, Özgür Özel, and mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu. So there was a kind of trend, or a strong trend, even among the voters of the governing party, that the CHP could come to power. So this is, I think, still so. However, CHP also have been, humiliated and have lost lots of voters in the past few years because of these corruption allegations in the local governments.
And what role in what we're seeing right now is the civil society going to play? We've mentioned the protests that were taking place. How do you think that the civil society is going to shape the government's response to the opposition?
Yes, there is still a chance for civil society. I was questioned several times about the civil society because civil society was the main motor of change over the past 2 decades since the coming of the AK Party. AK Party also got a very serious support of many forms of civil society, religious, economic, political, etc. Now that the civil society lost a lot of power. However, still it is influential, as we see in many street protests and I see that very serious segments of civil society are behind behind the Republican People's Party. So each day, more and more, the AK Party looks like a regime party, looks like a bureaucratic party, while the Republican People's Party looks like a civil society party.
So we know that Turkey is a major military power, not only in the region, but widely considered in the world. Do you think that this political situation that is currently taking place domestically in Turkey is going to influence its foreign and international policy?
One of the reasons that strengthens Erdogan's power is instability around Turkey. The situation in Syria is obvious. The war in Ukraine is making everything more complicated. So Erdogan and his regime looks quite stable, and this stability, of course, appreciated by foreign powers. So Erdogan relies a lot on its international profile nowadays instead of the voters from Turkey.
And last but not least, with what is currently happening in Turkey, what do you think will be the West's response? I mean, on one hand, we have the European Union that should possibly issue a response to what's happening when it comes to Turkish government dealing with the opposition. And on the other hand, we have EU trying to possibly keep good track record with Turkey, as it is one of the major military powers, especially in relation to what you've mentioned, the situation, the geopolitical situation in the region and in Ukraine.
The EU lost a lot of credibility because of not completing, I should underline, the promises that they made to Turkey. I'm an expert on this topic, and I should say that Turkey did a lot to start the negotiations, to continue the negotiations. Simply, the Cyprus issue made everything paralyzed and frozen. Then the EU lost credibility, not in the eyes of just the politicians, but also the people at large. Once I remember, the support for EU membership was more than 70%. Now it's less than 50%. So this shows how Turkish people look at the EU. EU, has been treating Turkey in an instrumental way, just to keep the migrants out of Europe. This is what we see, and the support, EU support for Turkish democratization is so low, almost ineffective, I should say. That's why the current government does what it does over the past decade, I should say.
Thank you very much. My guest was Kıvanç Ulusoy, Professor of Political Science at the University of Istanbul. Thank you for joining me on the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. And so this would be all for now here on World Talks. I'm Claudia Czerwińska, and I hope to see you back here on TVP World for more news and features in just a moment.